is it? And what's the big deal about losing it? Let me cut to the chase. Virginity is a completely made-up concept. It's a term that was created simply to control and shame people, mainly women. A virgin is someone who's never had sex.
What's good, YouTube? This is KB LaFleur. You can call me KB. Welcome back to another video, man. We got a pretty good one, man, and a pretty stupid one if you ask me. But man, we got a woman here, who is pretty much, saying that virginity, right? Your virginity is made up. Now, the reason I'm even bringing this up, man, is because once again, this is where our society is failing at, right? This is where our society is failing at, where you have people who are just coming up with things that's not even backed by science, right? You just got women who are just coming up with things that's not even backed by science and trying to preach this stuff out to everyone, right? And you see what she looks like, right? You see what she looks like. She looks like a typical liberal woman, man, who just can't take any type of accountability, who just gonna come up with anything. You're pretty much if good was bad and bad was good. That's your person right there. That's your person right there, right? Trying to turn everything bad into good. You can't do that, right? You just can't do that. But I will say there's one part in here I do understand, right? I see where she's coming from. But at the end of the day, virginity is not made up, right? It's not made up. And like I said, I'm gonna tell y'all why I even agree with an ounce of what she is saying. So let's go ahead, man, and see, man, what she is really talking about. Because like I said, it doesn't make any sense to me, right? It doesn't make any sense to me as to why somebody would even come up with this video.
What is it? And what's the big deal about losing it? Let me cut to the chase. Virginity is a completely made-up concept. It's a term that was created simply to control and shame people, mainly women.
Right, you can sit on here, right? But here's the thing, right? Here's the thing. The reason why, right? Right? It was put on women is because, number one, what man do you know have sex with a woman? This number one, just off of common sense. What man do you know who has sex with a woman starts to bleed? I didn't bleed when I lost my virginity. I know plenty of other men who didn't bleed when they lost their virginity. Who only goes through that? It's only women who go through that. That's number one. Number two, the reason why it was so big, and why so many men, such as your fathers, mainly talking about your fathers, the reason why your fathers were controlling a woman's virginity and who had access to that is because, number one, your virginity means a lot. That's women's value right there. Your virginity is a value. Why is it a value? Because number one, it ensures that you are definitely not sleeping around, right? If you slept with a man that you weren't married to, that was a big issue, right? That was a big issue. So of course, a lot of fathers got upset with that and said, man, listen, you're gonna have to marry this man. Hell, half the time they went straight to the man and said, listen, you had sex with my daughter, you're gonna have to marry her. They weren't playing that. So once again, the reason why it was so big is to make sure that people weren't just sleeping around. That's another reason why it was big. People were not sleeping around. If you're going to sleep with a woman, that's who you are going to marry. Now, of course, it's very different in today's time, but at the same time, your virginity is still a value. Now, of course, women today don't care for the virginity. They just throw it and just give it to anybody, right? The first thing, you hear a lot of women who want to jump onto OnlyFans, and these girls are 16, 17, right? They don't even care about their virginity. They don't even care about how men look at them. That's why, once again, this is why virginity is so important, because it tells us, number one, that you control yourself, that you can control yourself, right? That you're not a promiscuous woman, that you're not just out here just sleeping around. Once again, there's a reason why it was so important, right? There's a reason why it's so important. Just because it's not important for women today, right? Just because your women today don't care for their virginity still doesn't mean that virginity isn't valuable. It's very much valuable, Right now, I know a lot of women are going to sit over here and do the monkey see, monkey do, as if these women aren't grown ass women. Well, y'all men can sit over here and sleep around and sit over here and lose your virginity and nobody cares, because once again, man, our virginity isn't a value, right? Our virginity is not a value for men. What we can provide and what we can do is a value. That is what women are focused on. Men are focused on purity. Right? Men are focused on purity. So the less bodies you have, the better. That's just a fact. Because in today's time, you're not really ever going to find a virgin, right? Not even at 18, not even at 19. Hell, even for the guys that's in high school, you probably ain't going to find one. Because when I was in high school, I couldn't find one. There was very few. But I understood that times is changing, because you have a few girls that were losing their virginity back in middle school. They just don't care. Right? Women today just don't care, because they don't care, man, how the world views them. They only care about how the world views them in the way that they want them to be viewed.
A virgin is someone who's never had sex, but it's not as simple as it seems. For one thing, medically, virginity isn't a real thing. In some cultures, people place a lot of importance on the hymen, a thin, fleshy tissue located at the opening of your vagina, as a marker of virginity. But the status of your hymen doesn't actually mean anything. That's because having penis and vagina sex is not the only way a hymen can stretch open. It can happen.
And these are probably the same people who sits up here and says, well, scientifically it's proven that vegetables really doesn't do anything for you. It's scientifically proven that, that eating healthy really doesn't help you lose weight. Right? Just once again, people, these are the type of liberals that just come up with stuff, man. Once again, that try to derail people who are freaking focused.
And by putting something in your vagina like a tampon or a finger, riding a bike, or doing sports. So you can't tell if someone's had sex by the way their hymen looks or feels. Another reason the idea of virginity is complete nonsense is that sex means different things to different people. Generally speaking, society tends to define sex in a very narrow way: penetration, penis into vagina. But where does that definition leave queer people, or folks who can't or don't have penis and vagina sex, and choose to have oral, anal, or another type of sex instead? And
there you have it, folks. And there you have it. There you have it. I didn't even watch the freaking full video. But like I said, this is the same person. Like I said, you can look at her and tell she's with the A, B, C, D, E, F, G, right? The fact that you can literally sit up here, right, and sit over here and say, well, where does that leave people who doesn't like you? Where does that leave lesbians? Where does that leave two guys? Now we're allowing people who have this kind of mindset, right? Borderline, maybe spectrum, teaching our other children. People, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? This would be borderline spectrum. I'm not even going to lie. And this is what I'm saying. You have these type of people who spit this rhetoric and think they're doing something when you're not even helping the society at all. Right? Now, granted, she does make a lot of sense when she sits here and says, well, it definitely your hymen can be broken different ways. And that is a fact. Story time, right? I was dealing with a chick, right? This is back in, I'm about to do a video on her, right? The first time that I really ever simped, right? So much so that I ended up having to do drugs. Well, copping some Xans, right? I bought a Xanax. I bought some Xanax because I was simping over this girl. But, right, y'all gonna wait for that video. When I was dating this girl, of course, you're talking and everything. And, of course, we're talking about sex. And she said, man, that, hey, she essentially lost her virginity, but she never had sex. So I'm like, well, what are you talking about? Well, I was using this little toy and, I ended up started to bleed after I was using it. More than likely, she broke her hymen, right? So I get what she's saying. When it comes down to that. Once again, it still doesn't help your argument. Still does not help your argument, right? Still does not help your argument. You could be lying about a whole bunch of stuff and still have at least one truth in there. Still doesn't mean shit. Cool, great. Yeah, hey, that's fine. But that's still, even then, people are still some guys are still kind of going to be looking at that and be like, but even then, but hey, cool, whatever. Nobody had you but me. So once again, your virginity is still intact, right? Your virginity is still intact. Just because your hymen might be broken, hey, whatever. Your virginity really boils down to did you have sex with somebody? Yes or no? And for the definition, virginity, the state of never having had sexual intercourse. Sexual intercourse. Who do you have sexual intercourse with, people? Right? You're going to have sexual intercourse with the opposite sex. You're having sex with an opposite gender. So people, once again, like I said, she broke her hymen somehow, some way. But at the end of the day, nobody has ever put their hands on you. That means you are still a virgin. That means you are still a virgin. You can sit over here, man, and use a freaking 50-inch, 50-inch plastic nightstick. Who cares? You know what I'm saying? Now, it's still gonna be messed up. And guess what? Your chances of keeping a man, because a man gonna be looking at, But once again, if you're still pure, that's once again, that's what all men look for. All men look for purity. All men look for purity. So the closer you are to purity, the better you are. But you're going to have women who are like this, who are part of that shit, right? Who say some of this stuff. They're going to try to push an agenda here and say, well, it's just made up. There's nothing wrong with it. It should be, man, look, people, once again, don't listen to some of this rhetoric. I'm just saying, don't listen to some of the rhetoric, because it's only going to hinder you in life. Y'all do me a huge favor, man. Leave me a like, leave me a comment, and leave me a subscribe.